We know our theaters are part of the community, and sometimes it's the center of the community, depending on where you go. So we want to support those communities any way we can.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Box Office Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. And joining me this week as co-hosts are my colleagues and friends, Chad Kennerk from Box Office Pro, and Russ Fischer, the editorial director of the Box Office Studios, a division of our company that provides editorial services for movie theaters. And Russ, as I learn, you guys are introducing a couple of new features to the Box Office Studios offering. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. What we've been doing so far has been geared towards larger clients, and we are looking at ways to create editorial for exhibitors who need some editorial support. So we're creating a new approach to the work that allows us to create content for exhibitors that don't have a huge budget to put into play. And we're creating content that works from both a marketing and a search optimization level. We're looking at a wide variety of search optimizations, whether that's from Google, obviously, or going out to the fringes of things like ChatGPT, which is building new search offerings for users. And we want to be sure we're on the forefront of that. So yeah, it's just essentially the same sort of work that we have been doing, but making it accessible to many more theaters, people, of all different sizes.
And that's super important, not only for your marketing strategy, but also that SEO strategy that Russ mentions. For those exhibitors interested to learn more about these services, please contact sales@boxoffice.com. In a couple of minutes, we'll be joined by Cineplex CEO Ellis Jacob. And then in the last third of this episode, we'll hear from Todd Vradenburg, the former head of the Will Rogers Motion Pictures Pioneers Foundation. Now he is the head of the National Association of Theater Owners of California and Nevada. They've introduced Los Angeles fire relief grants. Todd goes over everything on that end with my colleague, Rebecca Pahle, in the last third of this very episode. And a big thank you to our sponsor this week, Agile Ticketing Solutions, for their support of the Box Office Podcast. Wow, that's a lot to cover. Chad, I'm running out of breath here. Let's go straight into Super Bowl ads because I missed it. Russ is in Kansas City, basically. He's watching this game with a room full of interested parties. Did you watch this at all, or did you go to the gym?
I didn't do either of those things, actually.
Man, if you don't watch it, it's guaranteed the emptiest gym experience you will ever have. So Super Bowl Sunday at your local gym, best day of the year to go to the gym. No one's there. It's wonderful.
So the other, my approach is Costco.
Costco, great call.
If you've been putting off a Costco run, in Kansas City and surrounding area, if you got to go to Costco during the Chiefs game is the time to go. And yeah, sadly, I didn't get to do that this year because I was actually watching that game. And I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't really care what happened. It was a good time.
Whereas none of us watched the game. We all caught up with trailers online afterwards. What were some of the highlights there? Because we had, 8 Super Bowl spots? I'd love to see that sort of investment.
Yeah, we saw kind of leading up to the big game that week prior, some big trailers drop. Starting with Marvel, we saw some more of Thunderbolts, asterisk. A lot of fans are saying, and Russ, maybe you can shed some light on this, that is an indication of Dark Avengers or something with these characters, that they're not actually going to be the Thunderbolts.
Yeah, I mean, that's been my interpretation of the title. And the asterisk was only officially added to the title in the past year, maybe. We've known this movie was coming for a little while. But yeah, that's how it reads to me, especially like seeing stuff that's in this trailer where they're talking about what the team name should be and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it's like, are they basically the Avengers going forward? Probably not, but it's like, is the MCU going to introduce like the West Coast Avengers, which was created in comics in the mid 80s? Yeah. Who knows? Anything is possible. But yeah, I think the clearest thing is that by the end of this movie, they will not be called the Thunderbolts.
What's up with the villain there? Because it seemed like there was some sort of cut rate Superman showing up.
I think it is the Void, which is the basically kind of like the weird, out of control alter ego of the character of Sentry, who is the character played by, what's his name? Is it Louis Pullman who plays that character?
I believe
And
so, yeah.
yeah, and so the Void is like, yeah, kind of his super powerful, shadow identity sort of thing. So it looks like that's probably the villain. And it's like a super serum experiment gone wrong, or at least that's one version of the backstory in the comics, which, given what we're seeing here, probably makes sort of sense. It's fun to see Julia Louis-Dreyfus playing Tulsi Gabbard, basically. You look at, there's some side-by-side photos of the two of them, and it's like, oh, they're really, like, this seems like it's very much a thing. Yeah, that's what I got.
I'm not sure how I feel about this. This is, and I wouldn't even call this the second string of Marvel superheroes. I think that's more what we're more or less seeing last couple of years. This looks like the third string. I mean, with the exception of Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan, I don't like how deep into the Disney Plus slog do I have to reach to recognize any of these people?
I think they're all theatrical, right, Russ? They
pretty
made
much
appearances.
Yeah, I mean, Red Guardian is from the Black Widow movie.
Widow, yeah.
Ghost is from
Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Correct. Yeah, and then Taskmaster is also the Black Widow. Yeah, I mean, it's like there's a degree to which this movie kind of seems like the new Black Widow movie in a way, but I don't know. I like the idea, at least. Look, comics has done this all the time, right? It's like you spin off a new team anchored by one or two very recognizable characters, and then you give a bunch of second and third stringers a shot. And I think we've said this here before, but Iron Man was effectively a third string character for most audiences before that movie came out. So there's always the chance for it to like really hit. Is that what's going to happen here? Probably not. Being realistic, but conceptually, I like the idea.
Like you mentioned, Russ, it's a pivotal year for Marvel this time around. And we know Captain America Brave New World is tracking to open, I think, a little bit stronger than we were initially afraid that it would debut in. So right now the tracking has this movie opening between 80 and $90 million on its opening weekend, probably hitting 100, hopefully, on the President's Day 4-day frame. But all in all, I think we really need a performance, not only from Captain America, but also from Thunderbolts to lead into the release of another trailer that debuted, not during the Super Bowl, but the prior week, the Fantastic Four First Steps. We got our first look at this movie. Chad, any quick reactions? Because like me, you probably recognize these heroes for a change.
And this has been kind of a classic Marvel story, trying to adapt this family for the big screen. I like the period setting. I'm interested to see how they're going to maybe take these characters out of that period setting. We know that Avengers Doomsday is coming up, and Doctor Doom's a big character in the Fantastic Four universe. Great actors, so we'll see what they do with it.
They're clearly trying to harken back to the Fantastic Four effectively launched Marvel Comics. It's the title that, before Spider-Man, Fantastic Four were the title. And I like things that this trailer does. Like there's that shot at the end of the team in costume standing on that stage, which is a recreation of the stage that the Beatles played on in the Ed Sullivan Show in 1964. And so it's like, okay, these people are super famous in this world and about to become more so. And it's like, okay, that's a neat concept. Like, what if the Beatles had superpowers? And like, sure, okay, fun. But like Chad said, also, it's pretty clear this takes place not in the history of the main Marvel timeline. So it's a multiverse thing, which is probably going to be the origin point of the Robert Downey Jr. Doctor Doom as well, maybe, which means they all somehow get bounced over to our timeline. And so there's a lot of navigation there. It's like the hope is that this can just be like a fun, colorful, like kind of in a way old-timey superhero movie, And the fact that this hits within weeks of James Gunn's Superman, which also looks like it aspires to be a colorful kind of old-timey superhero movie, that's intriguing. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays out. You've got all the famous guys. You've got Fireboy, Rockman, Invisible Lady, Stretchy Guy. Don't know their names, but that's what they do essentially.
Mhm.
And may they sell many toys, maybe inspire a theme park ride or two. So that trailer is garnering a number of views, already setting great benchmarks on viewership. From Disney, going back to the Super Bowl, however, we had another trailer come out. This one, I wouldn't really call it a trailer. It's more of a commercial for Lilo
Yeah.
and Stitch, a live actiony. Out of everything that was posted from the game, I found this the most, I don't know, adorable, intriguing, creative. It's the one that worked the best for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree. I struggle with these live action Disney movies, but Stitch is, there's a certain generation that grew up with him, and bringing him back, I think there's going to be some nostalgia there for people.
I haven't seen a single one of these things. I know I'm going to see all of them eventually in like the next 10 years as my daughter grows up, but at least it'll be the first time. Are any of these worth her time, Russ?
Are we talking about the live action remakes or the
Yeah, any
original?
of them. I mean, the originals are a lot of the originals are great. I haven't seen the original Lilo and Stitch. That came a little after. But have you seen any live action?
I saw Aladdin, which wasn't really a movie for me. I have seen most of The Lion King, also don't really need it. Yeah, I mean, I like the original animated movies like you. I will probably see them all eventually because of my kid, although he's not really interested in. I tried to show him Aladdin, the animated Aladdin, and it didn't really click for him. So you never know. It's like maybe we'll get there, maybe we won't. Lilo and Stitch. The thing that's neat about that movie, the original, is that it's like one of the last. It's maybe the last animated Disney movie that could kind of be called like a cult classic in any way. It's not a movie that was huge theatrically when it came out. I think a lot of its audience discovered it on home video. It's not one that's had big theatrical re-releases. It isn't part of huge marketing pushes by Disney. I mean, it certainly has its place in the parks, and Stitch is a neat little character, but it's not like Stitch merchandise is all over the place. And so in a context of Disney, it's kind of like this little hidden one. And so it's a little surprising that they decided to use that as fodder for a live action remake, but maybe that's also why it makes perfect sense. There are people who have very strong ties to it, but the general public maybe doesn't have as much awareness of it as they do, for say The Lion King or The Little Mermaid. So yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of a smart play on Disney's part is really what I'm getting at.
Not a live action Disney movie, but a live action children's remake, this time from Universal DreamWorks. How to Train Your Dragon, coming out on June 13, sharing a release date with a Pixar title. I still don't understand that, but at least the trailer that we saw at the Super Bowl looked great. Chad, any reactions from that footage?
I never really got into the How to Train Your Dragon films. I think I've seen just the first one, and for me, this looks very familiar to what Disney's doing in terms of adapting animated movies, sometimes almost shot for shot. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this one.
A little Baby Gladiator vibes here, Russ. Did you catch that at all?
Kind of, yeah, a little bit of that, and I'm very much aligned with Chad on that take. It's just like this looks, it's neat that Dean Dubois, who directed the original animated movies, is directing this one. So there's a sense of consistency, which is cool. I think it's fun that Gerard Butler, who voiced the main character's father in the animated movies, is physically playing that same character in this live action. It's like, okay, those things synced up well. Beyond that, the footage itself doesn't really do anything for me. I think it's kind of wild that the design of Toothless the dragon is kind of just a very straight redo of the animated version. To me, it seems like kind of a mistake. Like if you're going to do it, go a little further afield, but whatever. I'm not making the movie.
Maybe they saw what Paramount did with Sonic and they decided they needed to
pump the brakes a little. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, it's a good point. So yeah, I don't know. It doesn't have to be a movie for me. I don't think it's a movie for me. Nothing about that footage it really compels me to see it. But since I'm not the audience, it's not necessarily a problem.
And whereas none of us are probably going to be buying tickets to see How to Train Your Dragon on June 13, I can safely say we're all going to be first in line to watch Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. We've spoken about these movies at length. We have an episode of this podcast with Russ going over the entire Mission Impossible franchise at the movies. This is being billed, whether it is or not, I don't know, but it's being billed as the final Mission Impossible movie in the title, The Final Reckoning, or maybe the only final thing here is that word. If it's successful enough, I'd be very surprised if there's not another sequel. I like what I see here. There's stunts, there's callbacks to earlier movies, there's some airplane things going on. Chad, what's your feeling on this?
I mean, I'm going to see any Mission movie that comes out. So I hope it's not the last one, but I understand that, Tom Cruise is getting older. At a certain point, he said that he was happy to keep doing these until, he was 80, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, I'm in. Absolutely. I'm so deeply in. As far as the mechanics of how the stunts were done, I'll think about that after I see the movie. But, I think that pitching this as maybe the final Ethan Hunt movie, if nothing else, it's like not the worst idea. And I love these movies dearly. It's my favorite franchise without nothing else is even close for me. But it's like he can only do this for so long. And this one looks like fun. And I like the way they put this trailer together too, with the very narrow aspect ratio that opens up as the thing goes. It's like that's just a nice way to put it across of this is a big screen experience. And yeah, I was already sold, and I am still sold after watching that a couple of times.
He's been doing these movies since 1996. That's when the first Mission Impossible came out. Yep. And there's a trajectory here where I know it seems like they've been around for too long. I don't think they've overstayed their welcome. If we look chronologically at the 8th James Bond movie, that would have been the first outing of Roger Moore as Bond in 1973's Live and Let Die. So, we've seen that franchise continue to evolve and survive. I don't know at what time that jumped the shark, the James Bond franchise did.
And then it's like, is there enough left to do, Haley Atwell movies? Are they going to see if a movie like Ballerina performs before they make that decision? I don't know. They've got some time, but I can see Cruise and McQuarrie being ready to go do different stuff, and I get it. And I'd love to see Cruise do some more just acting because he's good at it and I enjoy it. I like watching him do it. So I'm in.
Well, talking about Tom Cruise, collaborators, and stunts, a movie that I'm surprised Tom Cruise is not in, we've got Brad Pitt starring instead, is F1 coming out from Apple and Warner Brothers on June 27th. Out of all the trailers that we saw here, I thought the most endearing one was Lilo and Stitch, but the one with the best footage of the film itself was this F1 spot. It was very short, I think 30 seconds, under a minute.
Yeah.
And it looks great. I was already in the bag for F1. I'm not sure about its commercial prospects in North America. One, it's F1. That's, those cars don't have a top to them and they don't drive around in circles. That's difficult for an American audience to accept. And two, it's Apple. And whereas Apple is usually best in class in every other industry it is involved in, when it comes to movies, theatrical movies, I mean, it can only go up from here. It really has to rescue that brand. And F1 looks like a movie with real potential to it. I think there's going to be a great excitement for this movie internationally. But outside of PLF, domestically, is there a long-term play here? Russ, what do you think?
Like you, this footage is really appealing to me. Brad Pitt doesn't have the draw that he did once upon a time. And, this is from Joseph Kosinski, who, as you said, directed Top Gun Maverick. And one of the criticisms of Kosinski's style is that it can be a little detached and cold. And someone like Tom Cruise helps really counterbalance that, as we saw in Top Gun Maverick. The footage that we've seen from F1 so far looks fantastic, and it also looks a little clinical and detached. I don't know if what we're seeing here is going to pull audiences in. I'm absolutely ready to see it, but I don't know what to expect here. And, I say this from the perspective of thinking that Moneyball is one of the greatest movies of its decade and one of the greatest sports movies, period. So like Brad Pitt absolutely has the potential to like draw you into this thing. Whether or not Kaczynski has managed to leverage that for F1 is a different question.
Yeah, we'll have to wait until the end of June to find out on that end. Also, a late June release here, horror sequel Megan 2.0. I actually haven't seen this trailer, so I have really nothing to add here. Chad, did you see the original? Did you catch that when it came out a couple of years back?
Yeah, I think Megan's one of those interesting characters in that she sort of immediately went into the pantheon of like classic horror characters. So, I'm interested to see where they spin this, how they continue the story.
And Daniel, this trailer is not even really like, it shows you very little footage. It kind of goes back to the idea of Megan dancing, and it's basically telling you, hey, this movie exists.
It's coming out. Yeah.
That's all this is really for. It doesn't tell you the story, but I mean, we're now in a very different place culturally than we were 2 years ago when Megan came out. I enjoyed Megan. It was a fun movie, but it's kind of a story of artificial intelligence that goes out of control. And I think that's going to be part of the plot of the sequel as well, where there's like basically kind of a military grade version of Megan that's been made. And so I think it's like the old Megan, it's almost like a Terminator 2 kind of structure, right? Where it's like the old robot Megan has to fight the new military grade version.
From like cutting government agencies? What's the military evil AI going to do in this one to make it topical?
There are a lot of questions that could be asked about which side we really want to be on in some of these fights. But the point is, like, we are very primed for, this kind of AI oriented, plot with a character that people have already responded to. Obviously, we've seen other AI oriented stuff that hasn't flown with audiences, but we know that people like Megan. They responded to Megan the first time. So there's, a good solid base for this movie to build on.
And that leads us into July here, coming out on July 4th weekend, Jurassic World Rebirth. I hadn't seen any of this footage. This was kind of exciting. It was great to see Scarlett Johansson in a Jurassic World trailer. They go back to the park, which is something that in our special look back on the Jurassic World franchise, Jurassic Park franchise, however you want to call it, Russ and I always stressed this franchise works best when you're in the park. As soon as you leave the campus, you get into some issues narratively, story-wise. I wonder how many more like hidden secret research labs there are in the Jurassic Park universe. You'd think they'd exhausted all of them, or at least sold some of it for like copper cash at a junkyard. I don't know, but they keep on finding them. And are there some like Alien Resurrection vibes I'm getting here on cloned dinos? Maybe. I don't know what you guys are getting here, but I'm into it.
I mean, I'm getting stronger like Tomb Raider / Indiana Jones kind of vibes, especially with like, there's one sequence that's lit that just looks like kind of a classic Indiana Jones lighting structure, but it's like very Tomb Raider. Yeah, I want it to be good. I'm going to fall back on what we've said about this franchise before, which is that there are however many movies and there's precisely one good one.
Yeah.
But this is Gareth Edwards directing, he's a guy who has a different approach to these very heavy effects-based movies than a lot of other people do. Made Rogue One, made the 2014 Godzilla, did The Creator recently, which not necessarily a great movie, but looks awesome. And I'm kind of hopeful that his whole approach and style can maybe lead to something different. I also like Scarlett Johansson using her accent from Hail Caesar. That's fun.
You have brought up Hail Caesar more than anybody else could dream of on this show. Yeah, probably more than I'm surprised if they still know they made it. I love that movie too. I'm happy you keep on bringing it up, and her performance wonderful in that.
I'll bang the drum for Hail Caesar for many years to come.
Chad, are you into this? What you're seeing so far from Jurassic World Rebirth?
Like Mission, I'm going to see any Jurassic movie that comes out. Jurassic Park was one of those seminal moments for me in the cinema growing up. And yeah, I think it looks fun. I hope it has more cards up its sleeve, hopefully.
Yeah, I think the
It
whole
feels
series feels washed by now,
yeah,
right? It's just it's
yeah.
run its course a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's feeling a little bit like Jurassic Park 3 / the family and Lost World at the beginning kind of mashed together.
Feels like a Lost World redo in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Hmm. I'm wondering, are we better off with just a complete reboot of this franchise? And really, it's nostalgia working overtime, as Russ says. We're very forgiving of these sequels just because that's how good the original Jurassic Park is. But if we follow the timeline of this universe, like not only are there dinosaurs and that's accepted, but dinosaurs have already invaded the world and we've already fought a war against them and won. But it's hard to introduce stakes this late into that timeline
Mm.
where I don't know how you can bring something fresh. Like Chad says, you need to have a different card up your sleeve to offer something to audiences.
I was really hoping that with Jurassic World, that franchise that we were going to get within that trilogy, sort of dealing with dinosaurs in the real world in our day to day.
That sounds like the Flintstones, Chad. What you just said is the actual plot of the TV show, The Flintstones.
Yeah, but the dinosaurs
show.
weren't eating them in that.
Are you sure you don't want to watch The Flintstones? Because that sounds like that's what you want to watch. And there's no problem with it. Great show.
I just want a pet dinosaur. That's
it.
There you go. I just want a record player that's operated by a dinosaur.
Yeah.
This looks like as close to a reboot as you can get without actually recasting John Hammond and, which I understand, I understand why Universal and Spielberg would be reluctant to fully reboot because it's like, clearly the recognizance of those characters is still really high. The level of cultural visibility for the original Jurassic Park characters remains significant, and the idea of trying to supplant them with fully rebooted ones is like, yeah, that's maybe not the right way to go.
And then what is a remake or a reboot? I think, honestly, I have no idea if this is another sequel of those Smurfs movies that came out last decade. It might as well be. But there's this new Smurfs movie. I think it's new voice talent. I think Rihanna's involved, if I remember that CinemaCon presentation from 2 years ago correctly, Chad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do they sing now? Did they always sing? I don't know. This looks like Paramount saying, let's do something like Universal has with the Trolls, with whatever IP we have lying around.
That's exactly what this looks like.
I think so.
Yeah. I'm not watching
with the Rihanna soundtrack.
Yeah, with the Rihanna. I mean, I love Rihanna, but I'll probably watch it on video with my kid.
I was going to say, I regret to tell you, Daniel, that whether you want to,
you will see this movie.
You're going to see this movie.
It will be on rotation soon enough in my home. I'm not rushing to see it in theaters, but I hope a lot of people do. It's great to see family titles like this being advertised in the Super Bowl. I think, like you say, Russ, the whole point of buying a Super Bowl commercial for these movies is to raise awareness for people that don't listen to this podcast, for people that don't work in this industry, and tell them, hey, you like that weird robot doll movie? We got another one coming out.
Yeah.
There's another Jurassic World in it. F1 racing cars. Give it a shot. It's a great push for these titles.
These are for people who see 2 movies theatrically a year,
Yeah.
And every studio who bought one of these spots is hoping that the audience they put it in front of, that their movie is going to be one of the 2 they go see theatrically. And that makes sense. It's not the place to drop a bunch of new stuff. It's just it's a giant billboard saying this movie exists.
That does it for our wrap up of the Super Bowl trailers. A couple of news bits here, Chad. We've got a new release date of a Wes Anderson movie coming up real soon. This was not on the calendar, and now it's around the corner.
Yeah, we always love surprises on the calendar, right? Getting more films out there in cinemas. Focus Features is teaming up with Wes Anderson and Indian Paintbrush for The Phoenician Scheme, which comes out in limited release on May 30th and will expand wide on June 6th. A lot of his familiar collaborators in this one as well. Speaking of Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks is in there, Michael Cera, Benicio del Toro is the lead.
This is art house Chris Nolan for those of us that don't work at a movie theater. This guy packs specialty screens around the world. I can't wait for it. Did you know this was coming, Russ? Because I have a couple of untitled things. There's a P.T. Anderson coming out later this year, but I wasn't expecting a new Wes Anderson like this.
It wasn't like hidden that he was filming something. That was pretty well known, but like this focus dropping like the title and a release date, and the release date is 4 months away, and that is kind of surprising and pretty neat, because I think even with Asteroid City, like that was a good year of waiting from when they announced it to, and then it premiered maybe at Cannes or something. And so this is like, maybe this is going to be in Cannes. I don't know. It's like Wes Anderson got his Oscar last year. It was for a short, but he still got it. And so now maybe it's like, all right, we're just doing the strategy differently this time.
I can't wait to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm eager. And I'll tell you, that Paul Thomas Anderson movie, there was a test screening 2 weeks ago, which seemingly confirmed that the movie is an adaptation of the novel Vineland by Thomas Pynchon.
Does it have a title yet, though? Because I've had like 3 reported titles so far.
The title that was on the test screening is One Battle After Another, which is not the greatest title.
Sounds like a James Bond movie, honestly.
Kind of does, yeah.
And now let's move on to the second half of this episode. I have a conversation with Cineplex CEO Ellis Jacob coming up right after this break. It was a strong end to Q4 last year, and Q1 looks like we were up year over year. Ellis, if you could share maybe some of the highlights for Cineplex during this period.
So Q4, we ended the year strong. I mean, the back half of the year was really good for us, Danielle. And the fourth quarter, we ended up with revenues up over 15%, and our EBITDA, which is our key measure, was up to 40 million and up 66% from the year before. So the back half of the year was quite strong compared to the front half, but the front half in 2024 was largely impacted by the strike and the product delays.
Yeah, in terms of activities that the circuit was doing, some of their investments, I know, from digital technology to loyalty to F&B, what have been some of the biggest highlights of the activities that Cineplex has been involved in for you?
On the theatrical side, it's a lot about, giving our guests special premium experience. And that's worked really well for us, Danielle, because 41% of our revenue being guests coming to premium experiences. So
wow,
that is a significant number and much higher than any of the US or peer circuits. And those would include all the different ways we offer the movies, from Ultra AVX to VIP to 40X to D-Box to ScreenX to IMAX. There's lots of choices. And what we saw is a lot of guests coming back multiple times to see the movie in different formats.
You know, we've been talking a lot about how to improve attendance figures here in this industry to reach new benchmarks in the coming years. In your opinion, Ellis, is this a frequency issue where customers are coming back maybe a little bit less often in the post-pandemic era? Or is it about getting folks back to the theaters that maybe haven't returned or returned very seldomly in the post-pandemic period?
I think, Danielle, it has to do with a couple of things. Content is key. If the content is there, our guests want to come out and have the experience. And, with our data, and we've got, 17 years worth of data with our C+ loyalty program, we know what Danielle has seen, what he eats. We know everything about you. So we can basically offer you different choices to come and have that experience with us. And we can do it at all kinds of different times and prices. Like on Tuesdays, our prices are very affordable.
Now, we talk about premium large format being a huge driver for you guys. Do you believe that you'll be adding more premium format screens into the future, or are you at a sweet spot right now with that investment?
No, we will continue to look at, getting and improving the experience. And a lot of it was delayed because of, the issues as it related to COVID and the strikes and impacting our bottom line. So now it's very important that we rebuild the business and get back in a strong way.
Now, I do have to touch upon a situation right now occurring in Canadian exhibition. We saw one of the major players going through some stress, Cinemas Guzzo not being operational. I know Cineplex in November opened a new movie theater in Quebec. Could you give me your perspective right now on the state of Canadian exhibition as a whole?
I think Canadian exhibition is getting stronger as the product comes back. And bottom line is, we've done something that, not all our peers have done, is we've looked at international product in a big way. And to me, that's really, really important as we look forward. So, for example, coming up, we are opening the movies, which we're all Captain America and Paddington in Peru, but we're also opening a Mandarin film called Niza 2. That film has done close to $1 billion in China. I'm expecting it to do extremely well here. And then we're also opening a Bollywood film called Shava in Hindi. So those are the things that we continue to do. And we've grown that business. Used to be 2% pre-COVID. Now it's over 10%. And in some cases in North America, we represent 20 to 30% of the overall box office for these international films. As I said in our call, in 2024, we hit records for a Punjabi movie, a Filipino movie, and a Cantonese movie. We do all of the Lionsgate product in Canada, and we do other, Canadian content, and we do some of the Amazon and Apple product.
I wanted to ask about that aspect in terms of Cineplex's distribution strategy with your partnerships, what the state of the distribution business is right now for Cineplex.
The distribution business does well for us, and one of the advantages for companies like Lionsgate and Amazon and Apple is the fact that we have great information about our guests, so they can basically, as we distribute their films, we can use our marketing assets to help them get and maximize the guests coming through the door. And that's the reason why I think it's very beneficial as we look at that whole business.
And that's, of course, tied into your loyalty program, Plus, which is, I think, one of the biggest success stories worldwide when it comes to exhibition circuits. I wanted to ask about that, how that's evolving, and also how that plays into your subscription model that is reaching new heights.
Yeah, so the Scene Plus program is basically 3 owners. It's basically a bank, Cineplex, and also a grocer called Empire. And we basically are the catalog and providing the benefits to our guests. So you can gain points in either of the 3 places. You can redeem them in either of the 3 places. And it's proved to be very beneficial as, guests really enjoy that. And our subscription program that continues to grow, it's called CineClub, and we've got growth in that happening. Now that program is much like what Cinemark has in the US, where you pay per movie, and you get somebody you can bring along for the same price. There's all different rules, but it's very, very beneficial for our guests, and we continue to grow that side of the business. And we do a lot of special events for our guests, including refilling popcorn and things like that, and then discounting Tuesdays. We had a special over the last 5 Tuesdays where we basically sold you the movie for $5 and you got a popcorn for $5. And that was done to drive incidents, because the last few weeks have been a little lighter on the product side.
I think those strategies are always helpful when you can give those visitors a little extra boost. And we've also seen the average spend for consumers at the concession stand increase over the last reported quarter. I think an increase of 6.4%, if I read that correctly.
Yes, and a lot of the concession increase is basically the variety of products that we offer at the concession, and also alcohol, where, over the last number of years, it's basically been allowed in most of the provinces. There's still a couple that don't allow us, but we are making the most of all of those opportunities.
That's fantastic to hear. Thank you so much for your time, Ellis. And a big thank you to Cineplex CEO Ellis Jacob for joining us with that Canadian market update. Now going to our last feature interview of this week's episode, Rebecca Pahle interviews NATO of California and Nevada's Todd Vradenburg about the Los Angeles fire relief grants it's giving to folks that work in this industry. That is coming up after this message from our sponsor, Agile Ticketing Solutions.
Since 1999, Agile Tix has been revolutionizing cinema box offices with innovative point-of-sale and web ticketing solutions. Their platform streamlines concession management, enhances customer engagement, and provides actionable real-time analytics. By bridging the gap between operators and their audience, they turn ticket buyers into lifelong patrons, driving success and creating unforgettable cinema experiences.
And I am joined here on the Box Office podcast by Todd Vradenburg, President and CEO of the National Association of Theater Owners, California and Nevada. Todd, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you. Good to be here.
It's always great to speak with you, though. Admittedly, I wish it were under better circumstances, but we definitely wanted to have you on. You're living in Pasadena, obviously. The area was very affected by the LA wildfires that have occurred so far a few weeks back in this year. What have you been hearing from some of your NATO constituents? What has been the effect of these wildfires on your members and the exhibition community at large in California and Nevada?
Well, we're very lucky. None of our member theaters were directly affected by the fires. Thank goodness. Now, they certainly had employees. We have theaters in Pasadena, and we have employees who live in that area. We have theater in the Palisades that survived, but there are employees from that theater as well. So their employees have really been affected by it. Not necessarily our theater owners, thank goodness.
It's definitely a hard time. It's so great then that NATO of California and Nevada has granted, is it $50,000 in grants to various Los Angeles-based organizations. I believe the LA Fire Department, Pasadena Educational Foundation, Altadena Girls, and of course the Will Rogers Pioneers Assistance Fund. Not to put you on the spot, but obviously you used to run the Will Rogers Pioneers Assistance Fund. I assume still very close to that organization.
Yeah, I'm very biased.
Well, it's hard to dislike.
Shameless supporter of Will Rogers.
Well, I saw that the Will Rogers historical, some of the House of the Stables is just
it's gone.
Gone.
Yeah, it's a true heartbreak. The Will Rogers organization has a very good working relationship with the state parks, Will Rogers State Park, which was Will's Hollywood home, and also with the Will Rogers Museum in Oklahoma, where Will is from. But the park specifically, I've been on the foundation board for the park for many years, and the Will Rogers Motion Picture Pioneers has always played a support role for that foundation, handling back office support, whether it's mailers, accounting, handling deposits, things of that nature. So it's personal for me with the park. It means a lot, not just to the legacy of Will Rogers, but to those of us who put so much into preserving that legacy and preserving this historical landmark that was once his home, but it really is a bit of an oasis in the middle of busy LA, especially on the west side of LA. It's 180 acres of just paradise, or was pristine, and his home, his ranch home was there, his barn that he built originally first before he built the home. It's just gone. It's all gone.
It's so upsetting to hear. And as you mentioned, it's such a big part of Will Rogers' legacy. I mean, legacy and just the gravity of history is something that this industry has always really respected. Will Rogers, I think, has gone back as the Pioneers Assistance Fund. Is it 85 years? I mean, practically since the beginning of the Hollywood cinema industry, that organization has been there to help its own members in times of need. I know that the fund is open to anyone who works in the exhibition industry. Is that correct? Is there something with the National Natural Disasters Grant where that 3-year requirement is waived?
Yeah, so what the Pioneers Assistance Fund does during natural disasters, hurricanes, fires, floods, they'll do a stipend, very similar to what FEMA does. Just give out some initial money just to help people get by for a patch. And then for people who've been in the industry for at least 3 years, further assistance kicks in. And so that's where Will Rogers is now, helping people who are dealing with the fires. Either they're displaced, lost their home, lost their place of work in some cases. So those people are working through the assistance program process right now.
And these are open to anyone who works in the
Yep.
exhibition or exhibition specific vendors. It can be used to buy groceries, to arrange housing. It's very open ended in terms of you just want to help people get through this initial period.
Yes, and it's important to point out that they are helping more than just people in exhibition. I mean, we are very happy that they're helping people who work in exhibition, but there are also those vendors that are exclusive to our industry, and there are also people who work at studios in distribution who've been affected by this. They either lived in the Palisades area or they lived in the Altadena area.
So yes, Will Rogers is one of those groups receiving funds from that $50,000 grant from NATO of California, Nevada. I mentioned the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation. Obviously, it's just heartbreaking the sacrifice that was made. Can you give us a little bit of more information about maybe the foundation and then these other two groups, the Pasadena Educational Foundation and Altadena Girls?
There are quite a few organizations that are supporting people who are victims of the fire in lots of different ways. When we looked at the different groups, we were really moved by, first off, LA Fire Department Foundation. I was lucky enough years ago to get a behind-the-scenes tour of a fire station, one of the busier ones in Los Angeles, and never realized how much they depend on community donations for miscellaneous equipment, their community room, food in the fire station. There's not necessarily a budget for all of that. So we were really surprised to learn that. And so that's why you've seen so many organizations, not just ours, give money to the Los Angeles Fire Department Foundation, because it's very clear, and you go to their website, what they need money for, whether it's masks, jackets, different equipment needs that go onto the truck. You would think there's a budget for all that with tax dollars, but surprisingly, there is not. And what they also do is they have community reinvestment activities. And they're not sure exactly how they're going to have to utilize those funds just yet, but they are committed to going back into a community where they just fought a fire to make sure that that community is back up on their feet again. So they are truly an outstanding organization. So it was a pleasure for us to write a check to them, because so many other organizations, studios, foundations are writing really big checks to them. It's because they do good work.
Yes, sort of thing you always take for granted. I never would have assumed that so much of just the operational needs wouldn't be covered already.
You take a tour of this fire station. They say, well, we count on community donations for this and for that. And what? Time out. Are you serious? But it's true. It's true. They do.
NATO of California, Nevada, you're definitely no stranger to annual donations, regardless of any specific incident like the LA wildfires. Is it $8 million over the existence of?
Well, probably last 20 years. Yeah, we're very charitable as an organization. We identify charities that have a connection to exhibition, whether directly or indirectly, whether they support our theater workers. But we look for ties to our community and try and support them any way we can.
Yeah, there's some great groups. I'm thinking specifically, variety of SoCal,
Mhm.
and then all the other variety chapters, domestically and around the world. This industry is one that is built on community and communal experiences, and helping other people to process ideas and to feel these feelings. And it's really great to see the industry come together, not just for its own members, but the members of, these are people who go to movies. This is who the
Exactly.
industry is for.
Exactly right. We know our theaters are part of the community, and sometimes it's the center of the community, depending on where you go. So we want to support those communities any way we can, and not just ask them to come patronize our theaters, but we want to be a true community partner. So
Mhm.
that's why we donate. And when we looked at the fire relief organizations, we looked at Pasadena Educational Foundation. Pasadena lost 3 schools in that fire.
Jeez.
Now you have kids back into the COVID era of education.
Mm-hmm.
And we know what went right and what went wrong now during the COVID era in education. So Pasadena Educational Foundation is determined to get these kids back into physical buildings and not
Mm-hmm.
do the Zoom learning so they're going to have to rent office space. They're going to have to go to buildings that are not necessarily being used for various reasons
Mm-hmm.
and set up satellite campuses there. So we saw that as very important. There is the same thing going on in LA Unified for the 2 schools in the Palisades, one elementary and half the high school got burned. But there's a strong fund being supported by the CAA Foundation,
Mm-hmm.
Creative Artists Agency, and EIF, Entertainment Industry Foundation. So we looked at that and said, okay, they have a great deal of support in LA Unified.
Mm-hmm.
Let's join the groups that are helping Pasadena Unified. So that's why we picked Pasadena Educational Foundation to support.
Mm-hmm.
And then a grassroots organization that didn't even exist until this fire
Oh goodness, I
catastrophe,
didn't know that.
the Altadena girls.
Mm-hmm.
This was an impromptu, true grassroots effort where some teenage girls got together and collected donations to give to all the teenage girls who lost their clothes,
Mm-hmm.
their beauty products, their personal items.
Just little things you don't think about. The big things, it still seems like such enormous devastation. But you can chip away at it bit by
Right,
bit. It just takes money.
right. It just takes money, and the response has been really strong for them. Some celebrities found out about what was going on. They sent their stylists over. They sent their makeup and hair people over. Many of us on our board have had teenage girls. We know how important their psyche is, their
Mm-hmm.
personal items are to them. So Altadena Girls is filling a true need that's out there that maybe the Red Cross can't fill, maybe the LA Fire Department Foundation can't fill.
Mm-hmm.
So these gals got together and they're rallying. And now there's something called Altadena Boys.
Mm-hmm.
And Altadena Girls has also created services for the teenage girls in the Palisades as well. So when we saw what they're doing, that's a no-brainer. We had to give money to them.
When teenage girls put their mind to something,
Right.
watch out because it's going to
Right.
happen.
Right? That's really moving to give to them because it's truly grassroots. It's here to solve a problem. And when the problem is solved, they'll no longer exist. And maybe they will in some other form. But right now, they are serving a need that no one else was really serving. And they're getting attention and they have someone to talk to who are going through the same thing. So it's also some social
Mm-hmm.
that goes into it as well, not just the products and the clothing and the things of that nature that they're getting out of this. There's also communal for it as well.
Yeah, that's popped up, and knock on wood, they will not have to renew operations for some future. Hopefully it's a one-time
Right.
situation, but the other 3 groups obviously are operating year-round. I know Will Rogers. Back when you ran that as executive director, you get a lot of donations from NATO chapters, but also I know a lot of the donations it just comes in from individual people, maybe people who have had to apply for one of those grants before and are now in a better situation.
Yeah, the needs come from nationwide. Also Puerto Rico, Guam.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really think, but those are U.S. territories as well.
Mm-hmm.
And especially during hurricane season, poor people in Guam and Puerto Rico, oh my gosh, every year there seems to be something that they're dealing with. So yeah, the Pioneers Assistance Fund, year in, year out, is helping people they start with the basics,
Mm-hmm.
housing, healthcare, food, things of that nature. And then they move on to more special needs if there's a need for that. Healthcare is a big one. Emergency financial crisis is another one because most people live paycheck to paycheck. And
Mm-hmm.
boy, something happens in your life, it can really throw you. So they're there to help people through all those issues, not just major disasters.
Mm-hmm. I know kind of the mental health element has been a big priority of Will Rogers since Heather Morgan came on as president and before then as well. But obviously that's her specific interest. If you go to wrpioneers.org, open to donations, obviously you can find out about how to apply for assistance, the natural disasters grant, but also just a lot of resources that have been compiled for the betterment of those in this community.
Right. Absolutely.
Well, Todd, thank you so much. It's been great to speak with you as always, and I hope to see you at CinemaCon.
And a big thank you to Rebecca Pahle and Todd Vradenburg for that interview. Earlier, you heard from my colleagues Russ Fischer and Chad Kennerk, and you also heard from Cineplex CEO Ellis Jacob. The Box Office Podcast comes back next week with another new episode. New episodes every Thursday, so don't forget to subscribe, and we will talk to you again next week.